in a sense, yes?
Yep, and we're getting good. I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but everybody should be really prepared that the economic crisis has not even really started. The thing at the whole concept has to be looked at. You hold your dollar. It's at the very bottom of a giant pyramid of debt that goes all the way up to this huge mountain of derivatives. And this giant pyramid of debt is falling over on top of all of us. And until we smell the last of those giant derivatives lying out there like giant lumps of dinosaur excrement, and they're all composted out, the system won't be purged and the crisis won't be over. We have some specific indicators that it's going to get a lot worse in late November into early December, and then go downhill from there.
Yeah, great. Well, I agree with you. Let me ask you this: Did you have that survivalist mentality before you started seeing the results from your technology, or after?
After. No, I was a regular fellow. I was working for all the giant computer companies, having a good time as a consultant, flying all over the world, tweaking big databases and doing interesting software projects, writing stuff for telephone companies, and having a good time. And then I started dinking around with this because Universe told me to, one way or another, and here we are. What is it? The quote is, "My, what a long, strange trip it's been."
Yes. What a longer trip it seems it's going to be, apparently, too. Yeah, well, I gotta agree. There's definitely something not good. It's we can see it. I hate to, people kind of accuse me of being Mr. Doom and Gloom because I talk about this stuff a lot, but it's really not to get people down. It's not. Maybe on some level it could be that, like you were saying, this thought virus in a sense. But where do you separate the lines between actually, information to inform people and the doom and gloom virus spreading, if you will?
I know it's a terrible balance, and you can have awful and unintended consequences if you're too rabid about all of this and don't have it as a practical reality in terms of your viewpoint. You can get people all whipped up, magnify their emotions, other people get involved. Next thing you know, you got the whole planet waiting for a giant spaceship that won't appear, and a lot of people will be upset, and who knows, you get a terrible situation and someone who's really unbalanced and is experiencing stress does something awful as a result, and you have that karmic attachment to that. So there is a huge risk here in doing what we do, even speaking about this. We would have been better off concentrating on the market and just letting it go that way, but it's too fascinating to get out and play with the universe and how it reveals itself, and to participate in that on a positive level. Because there's the whole of it is that at my core I'm an Aikidoist. It's a martial art that I fell in love with years ago, and it has all these really interesting metaphysical and mystical and moral components to it. And one of the things is that you have to, you're bound in identifying yourself with this art to go on out and make a positive difference in the world. And this is kind of my way of doing that. We've had a lot of people that have saved their 401ks by listening to us. Some people have even made money as a result of taking advantage of some of the stuff that we've said. And they will not be a burden on society now, or less of. So we do have positive karma that comes. And I believe your show is actually, you get into it with a really good skeptical mind. You're not out there to promote and magnify the woo-woo emotions that are going around. So in that sense, you get a good karmic benefit, and other people that listen to you do as well. It's a tough road to hoe, though.
Yeah, indeed it is. Indeed it is, because on one hand, you either get called a tinfoil-wearing hat kook, or you get called doom and gloom, or somewhere in the middle is like, hey, great program. Something like
but
that.
But I have a particular, like I say, I have a particular viewpoint that allows me to get through it, and that is that I try not to put my belief system or create a belief system that imposes anything on reality, and just accept the fact that at the end of life there's this doorway, and we all go through it. And so worrying about it is pointless. Universe will do to me as it chooses, it turns out, and the only thing I have any control over is my attitude.
Absolutely.
So I cultivate my center, I do meditation, and it really does help.
I agree with that. I think that we're all in just kind of along for the ride, and you just got to hang on tight and take the ride, because no matter what you do, sometimes it won't help you. You're gonna go through something.
That gets back to your doom and gloom idea too. There's the idea that you can harmonize with what universe is giving you, or you can oppose it. And I actually think a lot of people are harmonizing with a general wave they see that they're not even really able to articulate well, but they can sense it. And it's this like giant time wave that's rolling down on all of us as we spiral into Terence McKenna's concrescence into this ultimate reality, or Kurzweil's singularity. And those people that are walking around saying, oh no, doom and gloom, get out of my way, I got to go into bigger and better things, are putting a lot of energy into that denial that things aren't different now. And you can see that energy is starting to fracture, and that the whole of society is changing. And unfortunately, as we all know, when we go through this personal level of understanding and awareness, that is not necessarily a good and happy time. And so those of us that have gone through that shock of awareness and the shock of the new need to be standing around for when these people pop out of that active state of denial to say, okay, calm down, people.
Yes. Yes, yeah, indeed. All right. Other than the earthquake around the twin earthquake around December, is there anything else that you could kind of tell the listeners about that you're seeing in the data that they also should be aware of, other than the financial and the earthquake? Anything else?
Sure. Hang on just a second. Let me put on some glasses here. Got old eyes. Well, I'll give you a quick little timeline here. We've got from October 19th, maybe as late as the 22nd. Through to about mid-November, we're going to get restrictions on words about the markets. That may mean that there's a whole lot of government intervention and that things are very tense. It'll still be sliding downward. From November 20th, again, maybe 4 days later than that, through to December 19th is going to be the period of the most rapid occurring new language relative to the economics. So I expect it to be very negative in the early part of winter. And if the earthquakes happen to hit, as we think, and one of them hits in the Pacific Northwest, then we might get a period of isolation, that is to say electrically and through communications, that will exacerbate the situation economically. And that relates to the December 16th, thereabouts, to the 19th maybe, all the way through to February 19th. We see that the currencies are going to take some interesting gyrations. There's going to be all kinds of volatility. So basically, that'll run through to about the end of February, first part of March. A much more extreme bit of a volatility like we saw the previous week. So today was not a good day. A healthy system does not respond by a 1,000-point jump in a day, up or down, right?
Yes.
And within the whole context of things, if you go and do some reading, you can encounter in the economic sphere this guy, von Mises, who came up with this theory that at the end of our kind of time of economic cycles, a thing called a crack-up boom would happen. And so it's in our minds. It's quite possible that by the time we get to February, there might be such hyperinflation that the Dow might be at 20,000 and falling and dropping 4,000 and 5,000 every day. And that's not a healthy situation for the market, and it's kind of like you got a clock with a big pendulum that's got a big arc, and then you put two pegs in it that constrain the arc, but you don't constrain the energy. And so the energy keeps building up back and forth as the pendulum bangs on these two pegs on either side of its arc, and something's going to break sooner or later. And we think that that break will occur before March in a very serious way. So our basic theory is, along with the idea of Terence McKenna, going back to the woo-woo side of things, is that the period of time from like 1929 to, say, 1936 is going to be compressed into about 6 months. And that 6 months started on October 7th, and it'll more or less fade off a bit in early March of 2009. And you have to be prepared for the kind of shocks and scenarios that will develop in your locality. Mass unemployment, restrictions on services and good delivery, because maybe we'll have hyperinflation and oil restrictions, etc.
Oil restrictions, food restrictions. I'm hearing that they're going to put a limit on how much food you can actually buy. I mean, it's
I don't know about rationing per se. Rationing in one form or another might be through price. If there's hyperinflation, maybe we might get to the point where we have hyperinflation on food more than we've seen. Globally, this is a very bad system because most of the planet lives extraordinarily poor compared to the people in the United States. Now, this gets to the point of, most of the planet lives on $2 a day or less. 2 billion people do anyway. So if we get hyperinflation in food, this is going to be a huge strain on the social contract. We are getting indications in our data that a great many nations are not going to allow this to occur. Therefore, their option is very limited. And really what it comes down to is isolating the United States and those people that are directly pumping out the dollars, which is the homogeny of the Queen, who actually is participating and owns, Queen of England, who is participating and owns the part of the Federal Reserve, in the Federal Reserve criminals. And they may do so by isolating the dollar and dumping it and going to a global currency, and really that's their savior. And in a personal level, I would recommend that they do it. Now, it means the United States and the American empire instantly crashes, because our dollar would have to be recalculated against this new basket of currencies. Yes. They may say it takes $1,000 to buy a barrel of oil because your dollar is worthless, which it is.
Yes.
And your derivatives are crud, and we've been burned by you, and we're just not going to deal with you nasty fellows again. Now, that is a karmically sort of okay thing for us, because we have to go through it one way or another. We have to deal with this as a cathartic kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. It will force huge stresses on our society, though.
Yes. Internal. Oh boy, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, I know, and I've seen financial analysts talking about, when they're talking about the stock market, they've actually mentioned, and they've actually said, a lot of people they're not focusing on as the dollar weakens, is they're not focusing in on the Amero. Actually said it, the Amero. What is that?
That doesn't save us. That doesn't save us at all, though. Economically, the catharsis will occur. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the past situations, I happen to have been fortunate or unfortunate enough to live in Europe at the time that the French franc collapsed in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And they had to do an exchange, old francs for new francs. And every time they do this, usually you have a huge loss or transfer of wealth. They try and strip the system of everybody who's got cash. And because they do it on the assumption that, well, we don't know about your cash, we can't tax it, therefore you're illegal, and you're doing illegal things. And so we're going to have a 5-to-1 or a 6-to-1 ratio. So in other words, to buy an Amero, you may have to pony up $5 or $20 or $30 or $100, and you'll have a 2-day period in which to do it. Most of the country is shut out. There's always problems with it, and the transfers never go well. Yeah. And it still is a huge cathartic experience. And in the case of France, that actually precipitated the situation that cost them their colonies in Algeria. Not that they wouldn't have gone anyway, or in northern Africa, but it caused all kinds of social disruptions in the French-speaking world.
Yes. Wow, unbelievable. Tell me about the website. People can go to it. They can see what exactly?
My website's a little bit restricted in the sense that we don't put our stuff out there because it causes us problems. We don't want any of our material out and about because we end up eating it and we spiral in on it. So basically what I've got is a little site that just describes what we do, and you can subscribe for an outrageous amount of money, and most people probably are better off not doing so. Mm-hmm. Then if you really want to read about what we're doing, we have an outlet that we screen out of our data collection, and that outlet is George Ure's urbansurvival.com site. And he has a daily posting where he chats about the world with an interesting viewpoint. And he will put out our public announcements there, and we've been getting quite a few of them simply because there's been a lot happening. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's almost like one a week or something where we'll say, intrude on everybody's day and say, oh, by the way, pay attention to this or whatever. In this case, we're discussing the markets and the crash beginning on October 7th.
Yes.
And we don't see it letting up, and in fact, we see that the concerted effort here can go one of two ways. The safe way for the planet is that the whole planet binds themselves into an anti-dollar union in some form and controls things that way by pressure on the powers that be from the outside. That allows us to burn out our excesses in a cathartic experience and hopefully regain the nature of our democracy and proceed to rebuild ourselves with the enthusiasm and creativity that I know we're capable of. The other way is that we take down the planetary financial system with us as our dollar will roll over in this giant debt berg of these huge toxic derivatives.
Yes, very, very fascinating. Clif, it's always a great time talking to you. I really enjoy it. I'm fascinated by it. I am. I absolutely 100% am. I really appreciate you coming on and spending the time to talk with me about it.
Sure, no problem at all. Anytime you want.
All right, thank you so much. You have a good night, and we'll have you again. We'll have you on again, especially around December. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
around the 12th. If we've still got communications, hopefully I'm wrong, and it won't be the Northwest, and we'll still have phone service. But
right.
That would be a good time.
Yeah, that would be a good thing if we don't. It's oh boy. Have a good night, Clif. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.